2023, the Los Angeles City Fire Department responded to a reported rubbish fire in the 1700 block of East 14th Street in downtown Los Angeles. The first arriving fire companies found a large 200 by 200 foot storage yard with pallets, trailers, and vehicles well involved in fire with buildings that were exposed. The incident was immediately upgraded to a structure fire response with additional resources requested. As firefighters established their hose lines in heavy streams, wind pushed the heat and the flames under the freeway and across the street, igniting a secondary storage yard. The span of the incident covered nearly 8 acres, requiring us to transition into a major emergency structure fire or incident with 26 additional fire resources. Over the next several hours, our LAFD firefighters battled on multiple fronts. Due to the volume of fire under the freeway, they had limited access and faced many, many challenges so that we could effectively hit the blaze. Meanwhile, our crews simultaneously defended 3 different commercial occupancies that were threatened by fire. Our LAFD firefighters also had to work around downed high-tension wires when they fell across the street from 14th Street, potentially energizing the water flowing into the gutter. The large quantities of fire being pulled from all of the surrounding fire hydrants affected the supply. We thank the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, who responded and assisted both by increasing the pressure to ensure adequate water supply was available, and they also assisted us with de-energizing the downed power lines. Our LAFD heavy equipment operators also responded to this incident, and we utilized our Thermite RS3 robotic firefighting vehicle, and we used excavators as well. The RS3 is used to extinguish and to assist us with moving fire debris around, and this also reduces risk to our firefighters. It made entry into an area under the freeway and flowed heavy streams of water onto the remaining flare-ups. Once it was safe to do so, we moved our excavator in. Our heavy equipment operators moved our debris around in that area to open it up and to allow us then to use additional water streams to penetrate the fire. Less than 3 hours into the incident, the bulk of the fire was extinguished, and however, there were still pockets of fire that required extensive operations in dangerous conditions. The LAFD, LA County Health Hazmat, and Caltrans worked together to safely navigate the hazards and the concerns regarding the structural integrity of the Caltrans area. The engineers began their damage assessment of the freeway overpass superstructure. Ultimately, over 164 of your LAFD firefighters worked very, very hard. They worked through the night to extinguish the fire and successfully defended those 3 additional commercial occupancies that I spoke about earlier. Due to the intense fire conditions, one of our fire engines sustained severe damage during the course of the firefight. However, I'm very thankful to say that none of our firefighters were injured, and there was no injuries to civilians as well. Saturday night at 11 o'clock p.m., the LAFD and other local city government partners, including the LAPD, transitioned control of the incident to Caltrans District 7 for the investigation into the stability of the freeway. The LAFD is now in a supportive role as an agency where we will continue to support the incident with 1 engine on fire watch, as well as we are going to assist with the fire determination. Our arson section is supporting the state arson investigation as we speak. Next, I would like to introduce Firefighter Ortiz from the LAFD to provide remarks in Spanish. Thank you.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es David Ortiz, D-A-V-I-D-O-R-T-I-Z, vocero con el Departamento de Bomberos de la Ciudad de Los Ángeles. El Departamento de Bomberos acudió a una llamada de emergencia noviembre 11 a las 12:22 de la mañana. Llegaron a la cuadra 1700 de la calle 14 Este, en el centro de Los Ángeles. Encontraron una yarda de almacenaje aproximadamente 200 por 200 pies, donde había un incendio que estaba creciendo con rapidez. Este incendio, impelido por los vientos, rápidamente cruzó la calle y comenzó una segunda yarda de almacenaje. Los bomberos activaron sus recursos adicionales y combatieron por varias horas este incendio de bastante intensidad. Tenían limitado acceso debido a que eran áreas aseguradas con cercado y se les dificultó el poder poner agua y penetrar a las zonas donde se estaban quemando debido a la alta cantidad de almacenaje que había. Lo que sí pudieron hacer los bomberos fue defender 3 edificios comerciales en proximidad a este incendio, y esos bomberos combatieron este gigantesco incendio de aproximadamente 8 acres con bastante agua y cantidades de mangueras de alta presión y alto galonaje. El agua que estaban usando fue a una capacidad que el sistema de hidrantes que usamos fue usado toda la capacidad que tenía, y tuvimos que pedir la asistencia del Departamento de Agua y Poder para aumentar la cantidad de agua disponible. También usamos equipo especializado como el robot bombero robot y también un excavador para desmenuzar los diferentes artículos que se estaban quemando y que estaban derritiéndose. Esta operación continuó por varias horas y tomó más de 3 horas para controlar el incendio, pero el combate del incendio duró toda la noche entera, que los bomberos valientemente trabajaron duro y pudieron extinguir y controlar este incendio. Las operaciones continuaron, pero debido a la cantidad de incendio que ocurrió, tuvimos que manejar el incidente con peligro, ya que la estructura de la autopista estaba en cuestión si había un peligro para personas trabajar debajo del puente. Por esa razón, el Departamento de Bomberos con el Departamento de Salubridad y Sustancias Peligrosas y la Agencia Estatal de Transporte, Caltrans, trabajaron en conjunto para navegar estos peligros, y trajimos ingenieros del estado de Caltrans para hacer un asesoramiento de las columnas que hay debajo de los puentes. Más de 164 bomberos trabajaron toda la noche para extinguir este incendio y, como dije, pudieron defender 3 edificios salvándolos. No se reportaron lesiones a bomberos, pero sí hubo daños extensos a una de nuestra bombera. El sábado a las 10 de la noche, el Departamento de Bomberos transicionó el manejo de este incidente al Estado, la agencia Caltrans, y nosotros los apoyamos manteniendo una bombera para patrullar el área y asegurar que no habían nuevos incendios. La investigación en cuanto a lo que ocurrió está siendo manejado por el Estado, y el Departamento de Bomberos de Los Ángeles está apoyándolos con personal. Ahora me gustaría introducir al asistente jefe Doug Young de la Policía de Patrulla de Caminos.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Doug Young. I'm an Assistant Chief with the California Highway Patrol. I want to just take a few minutes to acknowledge the Los Angeles Fire Department and Los Angeles Police Department for their heroic work in the initial hours of this incident. I want to take a few minutes to discuss with you the traffic impact that this is going to have. The location where this incident occurred is on the Interstate 10 or underneath the Interstate 10 between Santa Fe and Alameda Street, right at the west edge of the East LA interchange. And the I-10 in this location is one of the largest arteries going into and out of downtown Los Angeles. This incident is going to immediately affect southbound and northbound Interstate 5, State Route 60, and the US 101, in addition to the 10 here on the East End. Closures, we initiated closures on the day of the event, but we're going to have long-term closures, and they're going to be on eastbound 10, diverting people off at Alameda Street. When you travel westbound on State Route 60, you're going to be diverted to northbound 5 or northbound US 101. If you're coming southbound on the 5, you're going to be diverted. You're going to be allowed to go westbound on the 10, but you're going to have to get off at the first exit, which is Santa Fe Mateo. And if you're going northbound on the 5, you're going to have to exit you're going to have to divert to US 101 northbound. We're going to be in long-term, we're going to be working with Caltrans and CAL FIRE for the long-term management of this incident, and we will provide daily updates and regular updates to you with regard to if the closures change. That is about it for now. I'd like to next bring up City Deputy of Transit Traffic Update, Lauren Rubio Conejo.
Good afternoon. My name is Laura Rubio Cornejo. I'm the General Manager for the Los Angeles Department of Transportation. In the immediate aftermath of the fire, LADOT deployed resources to address and alleviate what we are expecting to be a significant traffic impact to our region. Traffic officers have been on location in the affected area since yesterday morning to provide real-time response and guidance to drivers. It is critical that drivers in the area exercise patience and heed traffic officer instructions. LADOT engineers with our Advanced Transportation Systems and Coordination Center, otherwise known as ATSAC, are making real-time adjustment to signals on surface streets in an effort to minimize congestion in the affected area and to keep traffic moving. Our Special Traffic Operations personnel are working in close coordination with ATSAC and Caltrans to establish dedicated detours on surface streets. These detours may shift as conditions change, but here are the primary instructions for drivers. If you are driving on the freeway through downtown, we ask that you do not exit the freeway onto surface streets to bypass the affected area. Instead, drivers on the 10 are advised to transfer between the 110, 101, and 5 freeways if going eastbound, and the reverse from the 5, the 101, the 110 if going westbound to avoid the affected area. If your destination is within downtown Los Angeles, I strongly encourage Angelinos to consider taking transit options, particularly Metro Rail, as a way to avoid any of the closures and traffic impacts. You can plan a trip using Metro's Trip Planner at metro.net or simply searching Metro Trip Planner on your web browser. If you must drive into downtown, the primary exit and entrance to downtown Los Angeles from and to the east will be on 7th Street. Traffic from and to the west should exit from or to the 110 freeway to get access to the 10 to the west of downtown Los Angeles. Once on surface streets, please heed signs and traffic officer instructions, plan ahead, and please keep posted as we expect to have a more detailed local street detour plan. Our primary goal in this effort is to ensure that the continued operation and safe movement of our streets, Angelinos businesses, and people traveling through the area. We appreciate everyone's cooperation as teams work to address the damage, make repairs, and keep Los Angeles moving. I will now share these comments in Spanish. Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Laura Rubio Cornejo, gerente general del Departamento de Transporte de la Ciudad de Los Ángeles. Inmediatamente después del incendio, LADOT desplegó recursos para abordar y aliviar lo que esperamos que sean impactos significativos en el tráfico de nuestra región. Desde ayer en la mañana, oficiales de tránsito han estado en el área afectada para proporcionar a los conductores orientación y respuestas en tiempo real. Es importante que los conductores en el área tengan paciencia y sigan las indicaciones de los oficiales de tránsito. Los ingenieros de LADOT, con nuestro Centro de Coordinación de Sistemas Avanzados de Transporte, también conocido como ATSAC, están haciendo ajustes en tiempo real a las señales en las calles adyacentes en un esfuerzo para minimizar la congestación en la área afectada y mantener el tráfico en movimiento. Nuestro personal de operaciones especiales de tránsito están trabajando de cerca con ATSAC y Caltrans para establecer desvíos exclusivos en las calles adyacentes. Estos desvíos pueden cambiar a medida que cambien las condiciones. Sin embargo, aquí están las instrucciones principales para los conductores. Si conduce por la autopista hacia el centro de Los Ángeles, pedimos que por favor no salga por la autopista hacia las calles adyacentes para evitar el área afectada. En cambio, se le recomienda que a los conductores en la 10 hagan transbordo entre las autopistas 110, 101 y 5. Si van en dirección este y al revés, desde las 5, 101, 110 si van en dirección oeste para evitar la área afectada. Si su destino es dentro del centro de Los Ángeles, recomendamos a los angelinos que consideren usar las opciones de transporte público, en especial el metro, para evitar de alguna manera cualquiera de los cierres e impactos de tráfico. Usted puede planificar un viaje usando el planificador de viajes de Metro en metro.net o simplemente buscando planificador de viajes en Metro en su navegador web. Pedimos que estén al tanto. Estamos preparando planes para las rutas locales también. Si debe conducir hacia el centro de Los Ángeles, la principal salida y entrada hacia el centro desde y hacia el este será en la calle 7. El tráfico hacia el oeste debe salir desde o hacia la autopista 110 para acceder a la 10 hacia el oeste del centro de Los Ángeles. Una vez en las calles adyacentes, por favor siga las señales e indicaciones de los oficiales de tránsito. Planifique con anticipación y espere retrasos. Nuestro objetivo principal en este esfuerzo es garantizar la operación continua y el movimiento seguro de nuestras calles angelinos, de los negocios y las personas que viajan por el área. Apreciamos la cooperación de todos mientras los equipos trabajan para abordar los daños, realizar reparaciones y mantener a Los Ángeles en movimiento. A este punto me gustaría presentar al señor Tox Omishakin. I'd like to introduce Tox Omishakin. He will address you next. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I want to start off just briefly by thanking Mayor Bass and her team for all their efforts in helping us get to today where we can get to work on all the challenges related to what's been closed. Her first responder team, LAFD, LAPD, they've been all hands on deck to help us out at the state. So I just want to thank Mayor Bass for all of, her team and all her staff for all their help. Next, I want to thank Governor Newsom, who, when his team informed him of this incident yesterday, he jumped into immediate action to make sure that we had all the resources that we will need at the state to address this challenge. He immediately worked to, as you all know by now, declare a state of emergency and work with our federal partners, again, to make sure whether it be a process hurdle or financial hurdle that we may have, that we can get those hurdles addressed and move the repair and solutions for the I-10 forward. So again, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for taking the time to come to this update on the closure of Interstate 10, the Santa Monica Viaduct just south of downtown Los Angeles, following the devastating fire early yesterday morning. The governor, mayor, and I got a chance to tour briefly this morning the site of this fire, and we saw the extensive damage under the freeway. But Caltrans, as some of you may know, has secured an emergency contract to begin restoration on I-10 immediately. Last night, the contractor crews took hazardous material samples and submitted them to the lab this morning. Once this analysis is done, they can start work to remove debris using industry practices for all the type of material that is located under the bridge. Then Caltrans structural engineers will have a clear and safe path to get under the bridge and conduct significant sound tests that are going to be needed. Further hazmat mitigation will continue tonight, and structural engineers will begin more detailed work immediately. I want to emphasize that our efforts on this are going to have to be 24/7 to get this roadway back open. But I'm not going to understate the challenge here. It is significant. The number of columns under this bridge, we're still going through all the impact to the column, to the deck of the bridge. So this is not going to be an easy task for our structural engineers at Caltrans. The safety for the workers and the public is paramount in this project, in this effort. So we strongly encourage everyone to work from home if they can in the coming days. We're also encouraging people to take the train, bus, or carpool if they can, or if they must travel. And as has been noted already by our chief from CHP and our local partners, use I-5, I-10, and State Route 60 around the closure throughout the closure period. Again, I repeat, this is a serious situation for our infrastructure, one that cannot be taken lightly, but I'm confident that our Caltrans team will be able to rise to the challenge and address the issues around getting this facility open. Our efforts with CHP and LAPD will also be critical as we, again, try to manage traffic and make sure the detours around the area of the incident continues to flow very well. I'll close with, again, I want to thank the women and men who've worked tirelessly since this incident happened in the wee hours of the early morning yesterday. They've worked tirelessly around the clock since 12:30 a.m. yesterday. These women and men, first responders, Caltrans, CHP, LAFD, LAPD, all of these folks are heroes in this effort. And I look forward to seeing us being able to deliver a successful outcome in this significant challenge that we have. Up next, a very important partner in opening up this state facility and getting things back flowing. And she's been on the ground as well, again, as I noted already with us early today. Please welcome Mayor Bass. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today. To Governor Newsom, let me thank you for your leadership, responding immediately, declaring the state of emergency, and then being with us here today. We're also joined by our state partners, Assemblymember Santiago, State Senator Smallwood Cuevas, and Joan Sawyer are here with us today. And to all of our city departments for recognizing the urgency behind this disaster and working to accelerate the progress in order to repair the 10 freeway. Last evening, Secretary Buttigieg called and wanted me to assure the people of Los Angeles that the White House stands with us as we work to rebuild, and they have committed to ensure us that there will be no obstacle that stands in our way. So our strategy is three-pronged. Number one, ensuring that there is a plan for Angelenos who commute or live by this incident. Number two, working to get the 10 freeway up and running again as fast as possible. Number three, providing as much information as possible to ensure that our communities and commuters are well informed every step of the way. I want to thank Chief Crowley and the hundreds of firefighters that really risk their lives and safety and who battled the blaze for hours. Fortunately, there were no injuries or deaths, but we know the impact that this fire will have on the surrounding communities as people need to drive to work, school, and other activities. After the fire broke, I activated our Emergency Operations Center to attack this issue with urgency. On Saturday, I directed all city departments to immediately plan for how to address increased traffic due to this closure, to best mitigate the impact on Angelenos, and we will continue to urgently coordinate with our state partners to resolve this issue for not only the millions who use this freeway and the adjacent freeways, but also to those who live and work in the surrounding areas. I want to ensure Angelenos that we are working day and night to make the repairs necessary to restore the freeway. For those of you that remember the 1994 Northridge earthquake, Caltrans worked around the clock to complete emergency repairs to the freeways, and this structural damage calls for the same level of urgency and effort. We will continue to provide updates as they come. We plan to have a press conference later today. Our general manager from the Department of Transportation verbally gave the routes, but later we will have charts and more up-to-date information. You can stay informed at emergency.lacity.gov/updates. Please plan for delays and check for alternative routes. Traffic officers are on location to alleviate traffic impacts. Please heed their instructions. Let me just say, Angelenos, a few months ago, we came together in a disaster, in an emergency. And around the city, everyone cooperated, and we were able to go through that what was potentially a disaster, the hurricane, and there were no traffic deaths because everyone in the city cooperated. Angelenos, we need to have the same level of involvement and discipline that we did several months ago. Unfortunately, there's no reason to think that this is going to be over in a couple of days. We cannot give you an estimate of time right now, but as much as traffic is a challenge for all of us in our city, there will be no time like this when we will need to come together and all cooperate until the freeway is rebuilt. And I'm glad now to bring up our governor who will address us. Governor Newsom.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Madam Chief, to all our state and local representatives. Thank you for this opportunity to update you on the state's now responsibility to answer the question we're all asking. When the hell is this going to get reopened? That is being assessed in real time. When I say real time, we quite literally just left an hour or so ago the site. As we walked out, our teams walked in, the hazmat teams, as well as the investigation teams led by CAL FIRE to determine the cause. Remember, this is an investigation as to the cause of how this fire occurred, as well as a hazmat and structural engineering question. Those are the primary responsibilities now that Caltrans and our team face as we move to address the immediate questions. That said, the second question we all want to answer is, when can we reopen this structure? And that question will be determined on the basis of safety, and that will be determined over the course of the next many hours as the structural engineers working with our fire investigators assess the specific damage. You can see physically from your own eyes the damage to the columns, dozens and dozens of columns. We haven't counted the entire number of columns, but you're getting closer to 100 or so columns, 400 plus feet of the structure that's been impacted. What appears on the outside to be problematic may not be the real problem. It's what lies underneath, and that's the bridge deck, and that's the primary focus now of our investigation, is getting into the bridge deck, looking at some of the wood structure that is part of that bridge deck in that center part, and determine, we believe a lot of that did burn, how that may have impacted that structure. Columns are a problem, but our ability to rebuild that is a much shorter time period than the bridge deck itself. So that's fundamentally the question that has to be determined and answered, is the impact of the bridge deck vis-a-vis the columns themselves in terms of timelines to reopen. Can you open a few lanes? Can you retrofit the columns? Is the bridge deck intact to allow for a few lanes to remain open? Again, has to be assessed on that basis of that investigation. Here's a timeline that's important. By 6 a.m. tomorrow, unless something significant occurs, we will complete the investigation as it relates to the origins of the fire. As I said, the teams quite literally are on the site right now. The structural work is being done concurrently, but they'll get in once that investigation is completely closed more forcefully to make a deeper assessment. The hazmat problems are real. And as a consequence, we're taking that seriously as it relates to debris removal before our contracting crews get in. Let's make a couple things clear. This is one of those heaven and earth moments As the mayor rightfully said, this is a 24/7 operation, period, full stop. We are deeply mindful of Northridge in 1994, deeply mindful of the contracting strategies there. Invariably, you'll ask, will you consider contracts that provide incentives? That's being determined in real time. What will those incentives be? That's being determined in real time. What are the economic consequences of this, the impacts? That's being determined in real time. You'll recall the bonuses that were assessed in Northridge were on the basis day in and day out of the daily economic costs to the region. We can certainly assess they'll be substantially greater than they were in 1994. 300,000+ vehicles go through this corridor every single day. It's of significant consequence to the economy, to the health and safety of Angelenos, the impact to our schools, to vulnerable communities. All of that we take very seriously, and we're sober and mindful of the urgency to get this open. It's safety first, it's speed second. The contracting issues are not an issue any longer. That state of emergency waives any consideration in that space for the short run. We already have a contract secured. They're on site, the hazmat contract. It also includes some security. It also includes some traffic mitigation. They're already contracted. They're already on site. The ability now with the state of emergency to work hand in glove with the Federal Highway Administration also is been advanced. And I want to thank, as the mayor did, Secretary Buttigieg, the White House, for reaching out. As you know, the President of the United States will be in California within 48 hours. That's encouraging as well. The White House has appropriately taken this as seriously as it needs to be taken because of the economic consequences and the size and scope and scale of this incident. As it relates to size, scope, and scale, we're also not naive. A more contemporary example of the I-95 in Philadelphia, the great work that was done by my friend Governor Shapiro and the building constructions unions and others that were hand in glove in that operation. Again, another 24/7 operation. We're mindful of the best practices that were advanced in that effort, and we will be advancing similar best practices as it relates to our efforts here, informed by their experience. But I will say this, that is different, I won't say, as daylight and darkness, but don't compare the two. The scale of this is substantially greater. The question is the damage substantially more problematic, again being assessed in real time. So there are no rules and regulations that are hindrances to moving this operation forward. There will be none. Contracts are already in place, and let me double down on that. As a proof point, we've already identified 2 million pounds of steel that is available to move in real time. So the supply chain issue specific to steel is not an impediment in the short term. We're already assessing the broader supply chain questions, again, in a worst-case scenario as it relates to this incident. And finally, on the incident itself, I am intimately familiar with this site. Some of you may know that as well because you were with us when we did a large-scale encampment cleanup right on this site in August of last year. I personally participated in that. It was not a press conference. We were there actually doing the work of cleaning up this site. Thousands of sites across this state in the last year and a half have been prioritized with Caltrans. I am very mindful of the thousands that remain to be cleaned up all across this state. But as you know well from the multiple times we've been down here, we invested $750 million in partnership with the legislative leaders here on encampment cleanup grants, working with the cities and counties and taking direct responsibility with Caltrans. And they've been hitting and exceeding their numeric goals. We have a lot more work to do. That said, I'm mindful of the encampments in and around that site we cleaned up, and also mindful of those broader concerns around who is leasing these sites. And are they being monitored? Are they being held accountable? And the answer specifically on this site is yes. In fact, we're in litigation with the lessee. In fact, our inspectors have been out there on a consistent basis with citations. Their lease is expired. They're in arrears. We believe they've been subleasing the space. And we actually have a court date, an early part of the new calendar year. More on that, because I imagine you'll be drawing down with more interest in that. More on that, and we will make it available in real time. But again, in a litigation posture, I want to be careful. But this is a site we're aware of, and this was a lessee that we're aware of that was in violation. The issues around encampments in this area, again, for over a year have been focused of a priority, recognizing there's still a lot of work in and around that area to address other encampments, large and small. So again, across the spectrum, top priority, all of government approach, nothing more important, period, full stop. Let me make this crystal clear. Nothing more important for our administration, our collective administrations, and nothing, no daylight whatsoever is separating Mayor Bass and her team from our team. The answer is yes. I don't even care what the question is. The answer is yes, in terms of what her needs are, what the county needs are, and I have all the confidence in the world, because this is not our first challenge, as the mayor rightfully posed, that the White House approach will be consistent with that as well. So 24/7, 7 days a week until this gets done. But please, please give us the opportunity to get this investigation done, which it will be done by 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, potentially earlier. As soon as is, we will announce whatever appropriately can be announced under the circumstances. We will provide you in real time more information on the lessee and the investigations and the litigation posture, and we will let you know more about the emergency contracts and let you know more about the contracting provisions that we will advance in the medium and long term. And yes, you'll be told on a consistent basis by a team of experts the routes and the rerouting and the logistical challenges in this city and around the region. But again, I couldn't be more pleased to be here again with you, Madam Mayor, and my confidence is high in our capacity to deliver on the expectation and address the anxiety of millions and millions that live in this region. With that, we're here to answer any questions.
Governor Jackson with ABC News, is this bridge on the verge of total collapse?
We're going to determine that. There's a reason we didn't spend a lot of time underneath it. I flew over it earlier in the morning. We walked underneath it a few hours ago. It's being assessed in that respect. I mean, physically, you see what you see, and you've seen the photos. You go right behind us. But again, it's what lies underneath that really matters. You could be misled by some of the cosmetic side of this, and we're just crossing our fingers. But I'm not naive that we have good news soon as opposed to more difficult news. But even the good news is going to be difficult logistically for all of you.
Emily Valdez, KNX. Why is something as flammable as pallets being allowed to be stored underneath these bridges?
That's all being assessed, and as I said, they're in violation of their lease. We're in litigation. Their lease is expired, and we have been aggressive in addressing concerns as it relates to the lease itself. And I can assure you, already underway, as of yesterday, is a much deeper dive on all other Caltrans sites throughout the state of California, the current posture of the leases, the current litigation posture, the current enforcement posture, questions around increasing enforcement if necessary, and issues that continue to be top of mind. I say continue to be as it relates to encampments that may or may not have anything to do with this, but as it relates to air rights and leases, absolutely, that's the one question the mayor and I asked each other right when we met within moments of visiting this site.
Exactly. Let me, before we take another question, also recognize the CEO of Metro, Stephanie Wiggins, LAPD Chief Michael Moore, and the Office of Supervisor Hilda Solis is here. I also mentioned earlier that our next press update will be at 4 o'clock here in this building, and we will at that point in time go through with charts traffic routes. Hopefully we'll also have the Superintendent of Schools, Cavallo, who I've spoken with this morning, so he knows the situation and is going to have to relate the information to LAUSD family.
Governor, tonight questions for you or whomever. To coattail on my colleague's question, Steve Gregory, KFI, by the way. I'm curious. Then you were talking about you've had issues with the people leasing this property for a year. Can you talk about which agency issues the citations and what are the consequences? I mean, how far do you let?
Well, we're in litigation. We're going to court on this. So the consequences are profound. There's fines. There's legal consequences. So no, we'll get you the details of the posture of where we are as it relates to the enforcement actions. Caltrans is the one agency that's responsible for oversight and for making that assessment. But again, we're in a litigation posture with this lessee. The lease has expired. And we believe they've subleased the space to multiple sublease. With multiple subleases. That's part of the litigation posture. We're familiar with it, and I want to just clarify something. We were out there separately on encampment cleanups a year ago. As it relates to the details of the first enforcement actions, we will provide that to you once we get those details. We're getting all of that information, and we want to put it out once so we get it right and nothing is misreported.
Who's the lessee?
The lessee, yeah, that's all part of it. We're going to provide all that information for you in real time. The lessee, the details of litigation posture, the enforcement actions, when they took the original lease. More detail will be provided as quickly as we get it. I want to put it out together, including the name of the lessee.
Just to clarify, the pallets were being stored there illegally?
Not suggesting that. We'll let you know what those are exactly. There's been violations, and we will provide the details of what those violations are on the basis of the litigation and basis of the fines. Again, the whole purpose of that was to give you a sense of what we know, and then we'll get the details and provide that and make it public to the extent it's appropriate. And I want to be clear, because we are in a litigation posture, and there will be certain legal constraints in that space.
And I understand that. Hal Osby, Fox 11. I understand that, and I appreciate the fact you're going to provide more information. But aren't there policies that have to deal with flammable materials in these airspace rentals?
Of course. Absolutely. Yes.
And so these would have been the violations?
Correct.
Okay.
Or other violations. So it relates to subleasing or other violations that we will provide more information to you in a very short period. Again, please, I know the need to speculate.
Told us.
Well, I think it's more important to be transparent about this, and I think you have a right to know. All of us do as taxpayers, but I appreciate, nonetheless, your comment.
What's up with all the cars in one of those pictures? It looks like there's
a lot of cars were stored there, many vehicles. Excuse me. Yeah, no, I mean, there was, you name it. We saw it stored on this site, including large amount of oranges and other agricultural products, cars. I mean, again, all of that is being assessed, part of the investigation. Folks are in the real time. They're not going to start the bulldozing outside of what the firefighters heroically had to do. And again, thank you, Chief, for what an extraordinary job they did, losing an engine. That's not easy, and thank you to Engine 17 and their crew for their heroism on Veterans Day, nonetheless. Mindful of that, and also mindful that we are aware of no lives, aware at this moment, no lives were lost in this incident.
At the time of the fire, do you know if anyone was living under the overpass?
All that's being determined. Certainly next to it and near it. That's not even in question. Again, that's based on intimate familiarity with this site, not just on the basis of the mayor and I walking around and seeing other encampments in and around this site.
Is there any plan to clean up the encampments surrounding the site?
Well, needless to say, the people evacuated. And I will tell you that the people that we contacted yesterday, last night, and today are now being housed.
Okay, how many people?
The last count I heard was 16, but it's possible that there's more because LASA and Inside Safe are there right now.
What about, is there anybody living residentially in that area?
No, this is all industrial. There's no homes in the area.
Governor, I wanted to go back. When you were talking about the cleanup when you were there last year, and I remember when you were down there, was that while the place was being leased or prior to being, was it still state property?
No, this is adjacent to the lease site. Yes.
Yeah, got it. Thank you. I wanted to clarify.
Yeah, thank you.
Gary Johnson, KCBS, KCAL. In retrospect, would it be better if the state didn't lease underneath concrete elevated freeways just because of what fire can do to concrete bridges?
Just comment on that. Look,
Secretary of Transportation.
just quickly, Tokso Mishakin, Secretary of Transportation. Look, this is a common practice around the country. There are states all across the country that do exactly this type of practice. But based on the conversations that we've been having over the last 24 hours, this is something that's going to be reevaluated from a safety standpoint, whether or not we should continue to do things like this, at least to the point of also looking at what's being stored specifically. You know, vehicles with gasoline under it or wooden pallets, things like that we're going to look at to make sure that whatever agreements we have address whether or not those types of items should be allowed on site. But I'll assure you, this is common practice around the country as far as state DOTs using that right-of-way for storage.
Secretary, then, is it possible then, separate from the lawsuit or the litigation you're involved in, is it possible that the lessee could be held liable for all of this if it's found that the point of origin is in that property?
Yeah, don't want to speculate on that at all. As the governor noted, this is in litigation right now. We know who the lessee is.
Those are separate issues.
Sure.
So I'm talking about if, in fact, this.
But that's, if I may, just, that's part of the investigation. We've got a team investigating the determination of how this started. Once we determine how this started, we can then get into questions like that. I just don't want to speculate on a hypothetical. We will determine who's responsible. That's why we have a team of people that's on site as we speak. As it relates, by the way, to the issue of air rights, it is an interesting question because there's been a lot of desire for cities and counties to actually get air rights from Caltrans to build structures, to build homeless communities, and do more to address some of our issues of poverty in this state on these very sites. So the question's the right question. We're already now reviewing those complexities as it relates to existing leases and looking at ways that we clearly can improve the public safety components of those leases going forward.
I have one question, curiosity. The money that comes from these rentals goes to the public transportation account and then are made available to mass transportation. How impactful will it be if you didn't do that? I mean, how significant are the funds that come from these leases?
Again, that's all things that we'll be assessing over the next several days, like how much revenue we actually get from all this airspace lease that we do, what it goes into, the impact that it will have if we were to happen to say we're going to stop doing these leases. So that's all going to be under assessment over the next several. Absolutely.
You would have an issue with money right there, right?
Look, of course, this is not. It's not inconsequential. What you're talking about is practice that exists not only across this country. I was just overseas, around the globe, and so clearly, this circumstance requires a sober reflection of those practices, mindful of the multi-year leases that exist for very safe practices, mindful that we've been moving to improve these sites, to open them up to the public for other purposes, in some cases take down fences, remove storage and unsightly materials, parks and parklets that are part of this, dog walk parks, etc. So it's a complex question, and I can assure you, as of yesterday, it's one we're asking ourselves, and as soon as we answer it, I will make it public to you in terms of what our thinking is in the space.
One final question. I know you can't give us a time.
Question.
Right, okay, wait. I know you can't give us a timeline, but are we talking months or years before this is fixed?
Well, I like what you just said. What was the first thing you said?
I know you can't give us a timeline.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Question asked, question answered. Yes.
The
final question.
Final question. The reconstruction of this round-the-clock working, is there any plan to can you, based on these photos behind you, you say that the damage is significant, right? It is significant. What's the odds that the thing's going to have to be redesigned altogether, or are you just going to repair what you have?
See, again, it's being assessed right now, and it's too early to say. We can't speculate because they have to assess to see how deep the damage is, how damaged the structure is or not.
That'll be last question.
Can Mr. Secretary clarify something?
Sure.
I thought you mentioned that the results of the hazmat materials need to be analyzed, and those results need to be known before repairs can take place.
Right.
So is there a timeline on when you're going to know when the results of the materials?
We believe, the governor actually mentioned this, 6 o'clock tomorrow, the investigation will be fully complete. Hazmat will continue to occur. Hazmat's already started. Hazmat work has already started. And as soon as all the hazmat work is done, our structural engineers will be able to go in and figure out exactly the extent, like the governor mentioned, to the columns and to the bridge deck. Those are the significant parts that we're concerned about. The bridge deck itself and the columns, and that can happen within the next 24 hours, we believe.
Yeah. But let me just caution.
Yeah.
Yesterday, samples were already submitted to the lab, hazmat samples, and as well as structural debris-related samples. So that's a process in real time that can unfold over time. Again, first things first. Fire investigation, get it complete. Will be completed at the latest tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Number two, complete the hazmat so that we can remove all the debris, and then we can get those structural engineers working full-time, not just part-time, side by side as they currently are with the hazmat teams, to really get in, particularly the bridge deck, and then fulfill the obligations on getting more samples done in real time. All the other rules and regulations have been cleared as it relates to moving quickly, identifying contractors and the rest. As I said, the rebar, the supply chains, the mindset of 24/7, the ownership of this, the consequences to the economy, all considered in the context of those medium and long-term contracting strategies and goals. So want to get through. We'll know a lot more tomorrow morning, and that will allow us to then give you some interim timelines as to whether or not we have the capacity to do some short-term fixes, open up just a few lanes, or the entire deck has to be restructured or completely rebuilt.
Next press conference at 4 o'clock.
Will we find out results in this?
We're going to do a press conference early tomorrow morning, again, because of traffic. We need for people to know. Next press conference, 4 o'clock. See you then. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody.